Alright, it's going to break down another topic here, which is all related. This is all interrelated to the study of the Sage Way, and it's basically immortalism. Is basically what it is. Now, I want to define immortalism because I know a lot of people misconstrue this. Even when I first encountered these teachings, you do think that this means living forever, but that's actually not what they mean. Again, the goal with immortalism is to return home and remove yourself from cycles of birth and death. Because the premise is, and of course, they know that basically essence is being carried through birth and death repeatedly throughout realms of mortality. So the goal is to remove fragments of essence back home to the realm of chaos, immortality. In the mortal realms, there are, of course, we know of animals, humans, even plants, um, microscopic organisms. But even beyond that, they speak of, even higher realms which we can't see, higher vibrating realms we can see. But those also contain beings who go through mortality, which means they don't live forever, which means they're born and they decay and they transmigrate through these different realms. So the immortalists who've always been on this planet in some form or another come to teach this way to beings. They're all about stabilization of the breath, stillness, and release from what they call the matrix. The point of view being that the matrix is a deception, and there is also an inherent, what you would call evil in it, deviousness. You could look at it that way. That's how this is looked at from the point of view of someone or some mind who has been allowed itself to be taken over by the primordial mind. In this case, we're studying immortalism in the form of Tao or Tao, which is reported to be a religion, but on further examination, if you really look into it, it's actually internal alchemy returning to the origin. And this is also what Buddhism is. Real Buddhism. It's the same thing. Same goal. Same practice, basically. Essentially. This is the real sage way of immortalism, which a lot of people are not familiar with, and they misconstrue, and it ends up turning into a religion, backwards religion, and the goal also being kind of diluted. So this is a book, Cultivating Stillness, a Taoist manual for transforming body and mind, translated by Eva Wong, and she also translated the book, Cultivating the Energy of Life. It's another good book to get. So this book goes through a couple different sections. Basically, what all the adepts start off with when they start this path of returning to the origin. So it starts off, the sage symbolizes the goodness inherent in all sentient beings. The origin of this ancient sage is difficult to fathom. Basically, a sage is not necessarily a person per se, or like you would think someone is born a sage, because I think that's how we look at it. That's a kind of a religious point of view. That's the origin of religion, to not understand this process. Remember, it says the sage symbolizes the goodness inherent in all sentient beings, meaning all sentient beings can become sages. There is an inherent, what they would call a seed in all sentient beings. It's the primordial seed. You can, like I say, you can compare that to, or see that as 0 point, fragments of 0 point energy in every being. And this energy is not just, scientific fuel or technological fuel. This energy is wisdom. It's what the Buddha called wisdom. A lot of people don't get that when they read the sutras and it says, cultivate wisdom. And what do you mean wisdom? And like I said, it's not, penny saved is a penny earned type of Benjamin Franklin wisdom. We're talking about 0 point. This is wisdom beyond words, and it's like the deepest insight. That's contained in that seed that's in every sentient being. The origin of the ancient sage is difficult to fathom. See, that's what they're saying. This is a deep, mysterious 0 point source. It's like even past dark matter. But of course, again, that seed is in every sentient being. It says if human beings are willing to return to the Tao, they must find someone who can show them the heaven and earth, the sun and moon in their bodies. See, they're always making metaphors using the natural world. And you saw this in the text by Thoth, the Emerald Tablets. He says the heaven and the earth, talks about the wind, the sun and moon, sun being the spirit, moon being the psyche. See, it's the same stuff. So basically, that's the as above, so below. That's why he's saying, I'm going to show you heaven and earth, sun and moon in your body, and show you how you can really make this, you can recapitulate or recreate, reproduce this process you see going on, the vapors of earth and the air of heaven, what you call yin and yang. And they're going to show you how to do this internally, psychophysically, not just physically, but with consciousness itself, to create a being or to realize pure beingness. That's actually, you're not creating something, it's already there. So they must cultivate and follow the Tao that cannot be named, because it has no name. Again, we can correlate this, I would say, to 0 point energy, which is like the absolute, and you can't really name that, or you can't contain that. They must preserve and purify the precious Qing, Qi, and Shen. That's just basically, they call it generative energy. That's what we think of as sexual energy, which is really, they consider it generative energy primarily before it becomes sexual energy. So you must purify that along with vital energy, Qi, which is like bioelectricity in a sense, and Shen, which is spirit energy, sort of related to the mind awareness. It says then they will be able to ascend to the high pure, the most pure, and the jade pure realms. These are higher vibrating realms, um, with purity. They're pure. I mean, this realm here, it's evident that it's impure, even to your own mundane senses. Even when you, at your most sleep state, when you were just completely asleep, you still knew that this, is sort of an impure realm. That doesn't have to be argued. So you better believe there has to be realms that are pure. If not, then it's like, damn. And you got people worshiping, this whole thing, like, and this is all it is. Like, nah. Well, there's other realms too, of course, and they refer to those as pure, pure realms. And it says they will reap the fruits of immortality, becoming heavenly immortals, golden immortals, or spirit immortals. These are different levels of attainment. Basically, when you get into this, you recombine yin and yang within your body, depending on how deep and good you get at the practice. You become what they call spirit immortal. They will live in peace without being bound to earthly existence. They will live forever and not be subjected to reincarnation. So remember, that's the goal, to get out the cycles of reincarnation. It's not desired. These guys definitely are not pro, incarnation. You know, that's up to you if you really, deep down, you got to ask yourself, do I really want any fragment of me, or would I even subject a being to incarnation? You know, that's up to you to decide. But these guys ain't about that because they know there's higher realms, there's more pure realms than this realm here. You gotta suffer hunger every damn couple hours. You know, you gotta think all your problems really come down to hunger. It's like you wouldn't even go to work if you didn't have to eat. You'll make do with the shit. You would make a treehouse. Fuck it. But it's the fact you have to eat. This is what binds you. Um, so just that alone is like, nah. You can miss me with that earth thing. Earth human. They're seeking a more pure realm. So after you are granted immortality in the palace of Wu Chi, Wu Chi is the neutral point of view. In Egypt, that's Mayat. And so, like I said, Mayat is not just a social, political, or even religious concept. It's an actual esoteric state of consciousness that you can experience during when you get into real internal alchemy. What appears on the surface, it just looks like someone who's doing what we call meditation. But what they're doing, and what every real meditator is doing, was doing, will do, is internal alchemy. Because the goal is more pure realm, at least. Ultimately, release from bondage to reincarnation or reappearance. So once you are granted immortality in the palace of Wuchi, once you achieve this state of deep meditation, Wuchi, they call it samadhi. It's like basically being an embryo. You know, there's nothing on your mind. You're not dead, but it's complete serenity, complete total serenity. You will become an immortal living in happiness. So even while still embodied, your consciousness is pure. It's like you're reconnected to the 0 point. It's like chaos. So you don't even have the partial mind, which causes these negative reactions and even positive reactions. It's the partiality of your consciousness that does that. So, you know, ultimately the sage is not for either one, because both duality, or you can look at it as a trinity, you know, as a center point here and there, but either way, they're both stringing you along through transmigrations throughout these realms, which are not desired. So he says, this scripture is the boat that helps you cross the sea of earthly existence. And when we mean scripture here, we're talking about instructions on actually how to do it for practice. Um, these are the real scriptures. You know, tell your local pastor to, you know, read this to his congregation. Trust me. Of course, it won't happen. It's too deep. Water seeks its own levels. See, they don't even believe in this stuff yet. They do, but they don't, because they don't really know what they're talking about. It says the Tao is the way of heaven. It is also our original nature. So the original nature, that's again, that's also mentioned in the Emerald Tablets, or referred to. That's the absolute. That's where all things come from, basically. But this absolute in of itself sustains itself. So you can look at it as that's where this negation originated. Yet before this negation of creation, there was original nature, which is nature in of itself, which is beyond words, beyond description. It says the energy of heaven is pure and the energy of earth is impure. See, they're telling you again, earth is impure. Yang energy is always moving, yin energy is static. So the pure energy of heaven is yang, the impure energy of earth is yin. So they're not talking about male and female, and that's another point. When they start going this deep, they're just referring to principles of energy. So and to go even deeper, that's only a metaphor for internal, which means heaven, you could kind of within your body, as above, so below, that would be kind of like your mind, basically. And earth would be the body. They're saying the original, of course, the mind, the spirit is pure, the body is impure. So see, the metaphor is still there. This is, I believe they call it allegory. So he says, honor the earth and protect the precious pearl. So he's talking about within the body you have a precious pearl. There's a gate or a cavity which only arrives once you practice. It's not there now when you're sitting still, but once you start to get into the practice, it's almost like the practice puts it there. They call it the one is wondrous because and nobody can see it. Only you can realize it, feel it, and experience it. This is why most people will never believe this. And it's almost like you have to believe it to practice it and get good at it. So it says, and the empty center of Wu Chi transformed lead into gold, So we know that metaphor, lead into gold. You can look at lead as the heavy, dense body, transforming that into a subtle body. There's many ways you can look at that, but ultimately we know it's a metaphor. And turning lead to gold, we definitely they're not talking physically. Definitely not talking physically. So he reiterates the discussion of male and female does not literally refer to men and women, but to the ideas of yin and yang. Just to clear that up. I know a lot of times we do that. That's the first thing that comes to your mind, but you want to kind of strip away the mundanity in your imagination. Try to be more super mundane, metaphysical, and then you'll really start to get this. As the source of heaven and earth is the Tao. So before the Tao, see the before they're talking about before creation, there was a Tao, which is again a life in of itself. A lot of intellectuals, thinkers, and some people who get into this, it's partially true because you think the Tao is just this interpenetrating force that sustains life, as if you're saying the Tao needs what you think is life. And you will be right on a certain level. And most people would just accept that, like, okay, okay, the Tao was in life, flow with life, because that's how a lot of people take in this Tao. But what I'm showing you here actually means something deeper even than that. Now, that is true, because this creation is using the Tao almost. I mean, they would call it a defilement of the Tao perpetually. It's perpetual because it is interpenetrating. So, but there's another level than just saying that, because the Tao itself is the realm, is what I'm trying to convey here. It's not just the energy that creates life. It's like, your oil or your gas fuels your car, but no, not just does it fuel your car, but actually the gas in of itself is a realm in of itself. That's how you got to look at it. Other than what you're going to get popularized, and what most people are just going to settle for, is that it just fuels your car. So you got to take it to the next level. See, that's exoteric, seeing this gas as fuel, versus esoteric. We're looking at this gas like, no, this gas is this shit. How about, this is home. This is where it's at, on that gas. But it gives birth to all things. When heaven and earth do not lose their connection with the source, they exist forever. When humans do not lose their connection to the source, they become immortals, and their lifespan is like that of heaven and earth. See, when humans do not lose their connection to the source, basically, that's what the vital breath again. Always coming back to the vital breath, embryonic breath. Because remember, the baby, the fetus, the embryo, breathed. The respiration originated in the subtle realm because there was no mouth and nose breathing. In the subtle realm, the 0 point is immortal itself. So if you cultivate that energy, you can look at it deeper than saying you become immortal. It just is. I mean, that energy is immortal, so that's what it is. In a sense, you don't even exist anymore if you really want to, because you are not the body anyway. But that being, I mean, actually, you could look at it like a form of a wise suicide almost. Like, seriously, that's what it is. Because you don't exist. I mean, it's just this energy takes over this body, and this being. I mean, there's some fragment, but if you look at what the Buddhists call parinirvana, that means nirvana with residue, meaning the residue is you anyway. Like we're trying to get this guy out the way, like because he keeps clinging on to stuff or she, it's like, come on. If humans can open the mysterious gate, then they will not die. Now, technically, he doesn't mean you're gonna live forever and ever and ever in the body, but he's talking about again this being that's created through this process or realized is eternal. In the mysterious gate, like I said, it's not in the body, but it does appear in the body through certain, uh, basically, not techniques, but it's through becoming one with the breath, basically, but totally becoming one with the breath. Immortality is in the Shin, which is the spirit. The scriptures say all things have a source and an end. All events have a beginning and an end. Know this sequence and you will be near the Tao. So that's just realizing, birth and death, the cycles. The gate that gives me life is the gate that gives me death. Only a few understand this intuitively. So again, they're talking about the gate that originated, that generates energy from the Tao, that sustains, or that's what birthed you, that's what you breathed initially until the umbilical cord was cut, the cord, the umbilicus is cut, then that's automatically that pre-birth, prenatal breath is cut off, and you begin to breathe through the mouth and nose. But that's what gave you life. And as you go through living and living, this energy is, it's like it initially was a battery, gets burnt out, and it gives you death. And this mysterious gate, they call it the altar of wisdom. Like I said, it's because 0 point energy is wisdom. Maybe we'll figure that out. Maybe because I know a lot of guys, even like I seen the MIT professor getting into cultivation. Basically, he went under the school of Buddhism, but he's getting into cultivation. So this science class, they might have a prophet, a science prophet, come and save them. This could happen in hell, and there's no telling. So when this gate is open, the sage emerges. So again, that once that energy comes up, basically the energy is sage. Basically, this is sage is an energy. It's not necessarily a person. That's what I'm trying to convey here. That's what they're trying to convey. He says, hurry, turn back to the origin and cultivate compassion. Take advantage of the fact that the breath of life is still present and learn the art of immortality. Because again, this mechanism of breathing, which is the origin really, before anything physical, there's this breathing mechanism which started it all. This rise and fall, up and down, and this is what's repeated in nature. The rise and fall, the up and down. So, but again, that's not preferred because that rise and fall is birth and death, birth and death. But you're going to retrace this whole thing back. And since you have a breath within you, which is related to consciousness, you can trace it back. So that's, and you can also look at it as the mediator, because I know a lot of people get into metaphysics and everything isn't, it's not really visible, or it's visible, but it's not really real, because the atoms are not real, and it's really empty space between everything. Everything is really interrelated. But start to look into this breath, breathing up and down, this in and out process, expansion, contraction. Kind of start getting that in your mind as actually that's what mediated it. That's what mediated thoughts and emotions into physical form. This is breath. That's why this is the real practice. But again, not the postnatal breath, the lungs, nose, and mouth. No, we're talking about there's an internal breath, which was basically cut off at birth. This is the goal. You have to regain this because you're retracing everything. Like he says, hurry, turn back to the origin. So you're retracing everything that way. Although you may accumulate golden property, you leave the world with empty hands. So they're just cautioning people, like, yeah, you want to make sure everything's okay, but some people go too far and really, like get wealth for the sake of having it or for the sake of decadence. I'm not saying that at all. Now, if you got a plan, get everything straight because hell, because money buys you time. You can't, can't get around that. But don't do it for its own sake. You're going to use it as a boat to do what you really need to do. For those who really want to get into immortalism. So that which is pure is weightless. That which is impure is heavy. Now, see, that's where we go back to the breath too. The breath is weightless. Just in and out. No, not the air. That's what we're getting at too. Because see, the air does have weight. But no, this internal breath is weightless. It's an in and out, expansion, contraction, subtle energy. It's weightless. So it says heaven consists of rising vapors. These vapors originate from earth and ascend upwards. Hmm. When impurities settle in stillness, purity emerges. So again, because that's the goal of meditation, impurity settles in stillness. Mainly your mind, consciousness settles, and purity emerges. Because the mind and breath are related. I always come back to this. The more quiet is still your mind, you'll notice the breathing calms down and becomes soft. So they play off each other. Again, that's why the Zen schools always trust the mind. But then people take that one-sided and don't realize they have to realize or understand the breathing process to go along with that. Of all beings, humans possess the spark of intelligence. We are capable of embodying heaven and earth. So that's again, as above, so below. We are capable of embodying heaven and earth. This process can actually happen within. That's the wind, the internal wind mentioned in the emerald tablets. That's the real as above, so below. So he says, if you cultivate yourself and rid yourself of impurities, then you will become an immortal, as just stated. Like it's already pure, it's just impurities that obscure. So it says if you have the motivation, then you can cultivate immortality in the home or in the monastery. So it doesn't matter. A lot of people run into like monasteries and stuff, which is cool because it's a social thing too, and they still do learn some techniques, but they're just stressing the point that's not it. It's like people here who feel obligated to go to church. It's like, come on, like it's kind of simple-minded, you know. Talking about this grand forest and we're like isolated to the building. I mean, I get it for ceremonial purposes, but see, they're stressing the same thing here. Like, no, it's actually no difference. It's right at your feet. So here he says, empty your mind and fill your belly. Fill your belly to seek the golden lid. So empty your mind and fill your belly. See, that's the deepest, one of the most critical points to be taken out this practice. Uh, because they call it purification of the heart. Basically, like I said, you're turning your mind, you're seeing and hearing internally, retracing it back into the belly, mainly the inner navel. And you're going to listen and look for expansion and contraction. Listen and look. You know, one without the other, the process falls apart. So you're going to empty your mind and fill your belly. And that's the wind you're going to fill it with. But the wind, again, is not the oxygen. The wind is internal air, comes from the subtle realm. So you're expanding and contracting using this subtle energy. So he says the purity of the male and the impurity of the female have their counterparts in earlier heaven. And again, they're talking about the principle of male, the principle of female. Male meaning yang, they call it the yang original spirit. The female yin, they mean the body, which is impure. They're not saying females are impure per se, like, no, but the principle is it's yin. It's they will call it negative. So like I said, yin and yang is not exactly even balanced. I mean, there's so many esoteric ways of looking at yin and yang. When you get into immortalism, it's like, wow, okay. I mean, really, I mean, what they really mean by that is something totally outside of what most people even realize. Like, that's a deep symbol. They say they have their counterparts in earlier heaven. See, earlier heaven is pre-creation. It's pure. It's immortality. This is later heaven, post-creation, impure mortality. And they're not saying this was a creed of heaven, earlier heaven, to create this post-heaven per se. Because the whole goal is to attain salvation from later heaven. Because later heaven ain't no heaven. It says, practice the art of purity and stillness, and let the heavenly breath in the body return to its place. Again, the heavenly breath. The heavenly breath. Not the earthly breath. The heavenly breath. See, that's the key. If you get anything from this, start there. That's what you're looking for. It's the heavenly breath, just like the embryo. It's internal. It breathes on its own. But at first, you're going to have to train your muscles to breathe it. So you're going to have to nudge the muscles into this process. Just like any other, process of working with the body, it becomes a habit. But this is the best habit you're ever going to get. Or, become addicted to it. So it says, if there is no guide, then the breath of heaven and earth in our body will flow out of us. See, that's what I mean. Turning the hearing and the seeing internally. You have to watch over this. As soon as your senses go out externally, they say you've been attracted by the devil. Because again, this later heaven basically is the realm of the devil. Basically, that's what it is. It's what you would call the devil. It's in the Bible. They tell you that's in the Bible. Because it's a demonic illusion. It's a deceptive illusion. So as soon as it calls you out, it's like this breath, this heavenly breath goes away, and you get into a worldly breath, which is the breath of mortality. And then it says, so when this happens, not only can we not achieve union with the Tao, the origin, the realm of reality, but the Tao would be damaged. And that's what they say, oxygen, when the baby inhales oxygen for the first time, the primordial connection with the Tao is broken. It says that in cultivating the energy of life. Because, again, oxygen is not your friend. This earthly breath, this whole thing is not the friend of the Tao per se. It it is originating the Tao, it's using the Tao, it survives off the Tao, but it's not the Tao, and it's not necessarily preferred to the Tao. So it says the mind of Tao is inconspicuous, and the ways of the human mind are devious. See, um, yeah, I mean, no matter how you cut it, I mean, you're always, scheming. I mean, you're scheming for survival. If that means, sometimes you have to take the life of another being for your own, because you're scheming. Whatever you have to do, it's always, and it's partial. It's partial. So this is not the camp for, the all is the creator experiencing different facets of itself. This is not that team here. This is team. This shit is suspicious. How about, we go back to the Tao? This is already a suspect process from its inception. Like, we can always, the easiest example for the since because of the way we think, would be the animal realm. How they eat each other, even how some humans can eat, because even though we don't necessarily agree with eating animals, we know humans do eat animals. So it begs the question, why? Why is this necessary? Why create beings and have the whole foundation of survival be built on suffering or just devouring of other beings? And even there's a law of attraction teacher, Abraham Hicks, who channels what she claims to be source, or what they claim to be source. Someone asks too, why do we eat animals, or is it okay? And she says they appreciate you eating them. This is what she said. See, that's a demon. They're trying to justify this vampiric realm. And of course, something in you knows that's BS. But then she tells you you can get your fortune if you just, that you know, they buy more tickets. So like the hell with principles thing. I gotta get it again, because the human mind is devious. So it says the instructions that guard the mysterious gate teach people to distance themselves from the devious mind. So yeah, you got to work on this human mentality. I mean, you're gonna lose it anyway, so you might as well do it now. And not only if you lose it now, you gain something, but if you wait to lose it, you lose everything. Humans are created from the descent of heavenly breath and the ascent of earthly vapor. So that's what I was saying, how you can look at this process, breath as the foundation of physicality. Before, even anything physical, look at atoms, cells, look at breath, this up and down, in and out, expansion, contraction, as the mediator between thought, emotion, and matter. The spirit is the original nature in us. When humans contact earthly air, knowledge emerges in them. Opposed to knowledge is the spirit. See? So he's telling you clearly they're not in agreement with this whole post-creation thing. Because post-creation is ignorance, actually. It's ignorance. And they also call it craving. This manifested from a form of consciousness. Remember, consciousness is everything. So what type of consciousness is this? Basically ignorance and clinging and craving. So when humans contact earthly air, knowledge emerges in them. So again, this oxygen, like I said, is actually a suppressor of the spirit. It makes you think, which keeps you in this illusion. This is why real meditation, the first step in internal alchemy, you're turning the breath inward, not just the mind. The mind and breath are turned inward because you're reversing this process. This is why this mentality has to be there. This is immortalism. This is freedom from birth and death, not living forever in the realm of birth and death. That's stupid. Everybody still thinks that. A lot of Western thinkers, you see a lot of quotes, and you can read some quotes from these guys who basically, these so-called geniuses. So that, it says here, this is for a movie actually. Life is a gift, immortality is a curse. It's like, cause they're thinking. I mean, first they said life's a gift, like that's the religion of what they call a worldling. These world people. They cling to the world. Like life is a gift. It's like what the hell? Anyway, then it says immortality is a curse because they think immortality means live forever. But that's funny because it says life is a gift, but I don't want to live forever. That would be a curse. See how they contradict themselves, even right there. It's like this mindset. It's insane. People are deluded. And I get it. You gotta, it's the compassion because you understand that's all they know, and it's like you have to validate if that's all you know. But not if you're gonna be an immortalist or an alchemist. You don't have to do that. So you can see it for what it is. It's a fallacy. It's a delusion. You know. So no, immortality does not mean live forever. All right, we'll continue on. So again, this oxygen, this earthly air, when humans contact it, knowledge emerges in them. Opposed to knowledge is the spirit. So the spirit is opposed to this knowledge spirit. And everybody's, when you get aware or conscious, you start to, start to praise knowledge in the sense of actually for the next level of consciousness, you're actually going to drop this whole knowledge thing because it's based on the projection, it's based on the illusion. So says, even if you live to over 100, life is still a dream. So, yeah, it's like, come on. Time flies. The spirit tends towards purity and stillness. Knowledge tends toward action and disturbs the mind so that it cannot be still. So all this knowing, it's really just like they always say, you're tying yourself up with no rope. You know, you got to look at it that way. And remember, all this thinking and knowing is what just pollutes the channels more and more, stops the channels up more and more. So it says we need to appreciate the fortune of being born in the human form and the fortune of encountering the teachings of the Tao. Because basically they're saying, you lucky you a human. All right. So now, you human now. They're saying you've been through animal realms, and you can look at it many different ways. I'm not, because basically when you get to the higher metaphysics, there's not really you per se, but there's this essence that's experiencing all these different realms simultaneously, individually, all that. But again, this is the fight, the good fight. So, because even at some point you got to let go of this whole you thing, like I don't want to be reincarnated. And it's not even that's not the case per se. But we know there is something being reincarnated, some aspect of consciousness being reincarnated. Now, of course, you're not going to be you. It's like if you reincarnated as a dog. It's like you're not going to be you saying, "Oh, damn, I'm a dog now. Oh shit, I got to get back to my old." No, it doesn't work like that. So that it's not like that. But we do know this is basically what they're saying is this is the good fight for those who are for it. And it's not about clinging to your own salvation. But this is real. This process is real. You'll be able to verify this again in one night of practice. If you're really serious about it, then you'll know it won't even be about, so-called escaping birth and death per se. It'll just be about this process because you'll know it's real and where it leads. It says the mind of Tao is your true father and mother, and the centering energy is your precious child. So again, this heavenly breath within, you basically reconnecting with your father and mother, which is the Tao, your true father and mother, and holding on to this energy like a child, as if it was your child. It says the human mind does not have an innate tendency towards stillness. So again, they talk about the human mentality, like it's always like that's the main problem with meditation. Again, I mean, the first step, you have to still the mind because it started with mind, it has to end with mind. However, because the spirit dwells in it, the mind is still when the spirit is in control. So that's alchemy. You're already reversing the process. So the mind, this mentality doesn't submerge the spirit anymore. You're gonna reverse this process, put the spirit in control, and take over creative evolution, basically. It says all mortals are affected by the destructive effects of the 6 thieves and 7 emotions and 10 weaknesses. That's what they call it. The 6 thieves, like the senses, the 7 emotions. The emotions: joy, anger, sorrow. 10 weaknesses. Some weaknesses they talk about is standing too much, sitting too much, sleeping too much, speaking too much, eating too much, fucking too much. But they're all the weaknesses, of humans that they're talking about. So, they say eradicate the 6 thieves, 7 emotions, and 10 weaknesses, and you will return the Tao mind, basically. So the human mind is a parasite to the Tao mind, basically, is what they're saying. There's a story about how they make a metaphor. There was this immortal being, and some other being or character comes to drill holes inside this being for senses, and that being becomes immortal. Amortal, meaning it was immortal until the senses appeared, then it became mortal. Because this would really, again, so it's like it's being these bodies, these, it's like it's using this primordial spirit as a battery. It's exploiting the spirit. It says, do not let the six thieves drag you into the dark realms of suffering. So these senses basically, they string you along. They're stringing you along. That's no other way to put it. And it says, reincarnation in the six existences will always be in front of you. They're talking about dimensions, basically. See, they're not with any of these dimensions. You know, we say 6, 7, 9, 13, whatever. They're not with any of them because they know it's an illusion. And they know the origin is real, so why play with the illusion? Everyone agrees this is an illusion, but very few are willing to say, well, yeah, why would I want to play with an illusion? Like that's sage, that's wisdom of the origin only. But if you're smart, you know, you just sit around and try to figure out how to play with it. But if the wise, the real wisdom is like, no, why play with it? See, that's the difference. Because you can play with it. That's called the spiral path. But the sage path is just straight back to the origin. The spiral path is basically spiral. You spiral, hopefully, back to the origin. So he reiterates, the commoner and the sage both come from the same family. I mean, the origin of all it is the same. That's 0 point. Everyone has this connection. No matter how far they stray, it's still there. But it's polluted. It has to be remember purified. And what is meant by purifying the spirit? When there is not a thought in the mind, the spirit is pure. Because this human mind is it's a defilement. Basically, they call it a defilement. Those who are unable to attain the Tao are people whose minds are not clear. So just reiterating the point, gotta clear up the mind, and that's through, you know, you don't just sit there, just try to sit there with your mind still, like nah. But they're just letting you know this process. You know, part of the process is the mind has to be clear because that's what's obstructing it. And it says mortals are unable to become immortals, Buddhas, or sages because they cannot lay aside happiness, anger, sadness, and delight. See, they're saying all the emotions, basically, because they any emotion it just disturbs for some reason. It just pollutes the chi channels, and basically everything has to be purified in order to realize its origin. You have to purify these chi channels, and the emotions they don't help. They don't help you do that. It says, from now on I shall not enter the palace of the Lord of the dead. And they're talking about the world, or this density even. period. Really, they're talking about the whole shebang, like I said, of creation itself. It's the post-heaven realm with this all its dimensions. They call it the palace of the Lord of the Dead. I shall become an immortal and travel to the Jade Palace. They're trying to get above this thing. Um, this is not a divine ordinance. This realm we find ourselves in. It says, what is meant by seeing emptiness? Inwardly, it refers to the true void that is the mysterious gate in the body. So the void, and that corresponds to, again, empty your heart and fill the belly. This void, you fill it with this, corresponds to the belly, but you fill it with this subtle energy. And this is the sage here. He says, problems arise because I have a body. If I do not have my body, then what problems are there? And Lao Tzu also said that. Because they're trying to get you to realize, initially, you're going to realize that your body is the source of all your problems. This can help you get the mentality that will enable you to let go of the body during cultivation, because you have to let go in order to release and purify the chi channels to transform this body from lead to gold. Ultimately, you're going to realize there is no body. Like the Buddha started off and said, there is no body. Because it's you're clinging to it, mainly in thought and emotion, that makes it so. And it's really the source of all your problems and pleasures. But most people can't take that. It's like take the good with the bad or take the bad with the good. People don't want to do that. So it's like, yeah, okay, it's the source of your pleasures. It's also the source of your pain too. So you can't complain. Oh, I gotta go to work and all that. Well, that's because you have a body. But then when it's time to get, well, yeah, you love a body, so it's like you gotta pick. But that's all because you have a body. So the paradox, he says, is to place little importance on your body so that it can be most important. Abandon your body so that it can be preserved. That's what I was saying about once the mind is removed of consciousness through samadhi, because you're in a state of serenity, then the channels can do what they naturally do. They're going to unfold, unwind, because they're all knotted up. Like we're all knotted up here. That's what the yogis and everything you see, because that's real popular here, is the the Indians, the yogis in meditation. That's what they're doing. They know these knots from millions of years of evolution and creation and destruction. These bodies now, the channels and everything are they're shut down. But he stresses the point that it says in the Diamond Sutra, you cannot see the Tathagata Buddha with your body. Basically, you cannot realize enlightenment with the body. Although you're in the body now, you're realizing what you have to realize. What's blocking you from what you have to realize is clinging to the body, basically. So it says, do not confuse your mundane body with the Tao. Because a lot of practices like Tantra, even when we look at all these chakras, and sometimes you confuse yourself. 'Cause I see a lot of artwork now, is glorifying the body and the chakras, and there's a artist out there who draws just actually some gory stuff. But he makes it look new age and mystical. He draws a lot of the muscles and veins, and he shows you detail of the body without skin. But he makes it look, supernatural. He makes it look super mundane. They're like, no, it's mundane. So do not confuse your mundane body with the Tao. Beyond this body is the real body. So there's no need to glorify this body. There's a real body beyond it. And he's stating here, he's talking about, again, people who cling to the body, even during practice. He says, even if they cultivate their bodies, they only practice the 8 devas, which is yoga. See, they're looking down on the yoga, and I'm so not just the stretching, but a lot of the yogic practices that we are becoming familiar with. Not all of them, not all of the yogas, but most of them because they're forceful. The 6 breathing techniques and the lesser microcosmic circulation. They only know how to manipulate the mundane body. So basically, a lot of those practices, you can start with the physical body, but you're going to have to release the body at some point to work mainly what they call, you just working with spirit itself, which is the harder angle to go in from. So usually that's the you use the false body to cultivate the real body, as they say. Because it says here, the immortal emerges in the one breath of nothingness. So that's what I was saying about that breath. Use this false breath to find this embryonic true breath. Then use the true breath to find the one breath, which is like a unification of inhalation and exhalation. That's the circle you see in Zen. That's what it's referring to. It's this one breath, basically. When there is no heart, no things, and no body, you will meet the possessor of your earlier heaven body. Remember the earlier heaven, pre-creation. That body, which actually is not a body as you would know it. But they're just using, that's the only way we could describe it to you while you're still in this delusory realm of mortality. So they're talking about a deeper state here when you get in cultivation called emptiness, which is really openness. It's like a field which can contain all things, openness. All realms of existence are dissolved. In absolute stillness, there is no self and no other. There is only earlier heaven and its undifferentiated whole. See, they're all about this earlier heaven, undifferentiated, because this differentiation is what they would consider the problem or the bull. It's the illusion. It's false. It's not true. It's definitely not true. Like no, because no one being is even true. It's partial. So how could it be true? But again, that's up to you because the New Age would tell you that the source wanted to experience itself partially to understand like who knows, that doesn't make sense, but whatever. I still don't get it totally. And most people in those meetings don't really get it. Or they can't really accept it. It's like, oh, I must be too stupid. But I mean, there's just something insane about it. Like, it's like that cartoon with the, I don't know, like the minions or these just it's just like a bunch of characters. Like just one pops up, another one, I. Then you got like this cacophony of eyes, and it's like it's suspect. To the sage, that's suspect because they're it's like all these eyes, and they're claiming to be this individual, and they have these needs, and it's like, well, this is insanity. This is greed, basically. This is greed. It says the one breath of earlier heaven gives us intuition, and intuition is the virtue of humility. When the mind of Tao lives, no thoughts can arise. When no thoughts arise, one returns to earlier heaven. See, it's all about earlier heaven. That's what they're calling it, earlier heaven. And this would be later heaven. Again, not desired. When we return to earlier heaven, we gradually enter the true way. So it's explaining this basically what happened or this fall. It says when earlier heaven has run its course, it descends to the mortal realm like an infant tumbling head first from the mother's womb. See, like they're making that head first, like tumbling. Because they look at birth too, like birth is like a man who's just walking along a high mountain and he just loses his footing and the rocks chip and that's what they look at as birth. Like it's sudden, not desired, basically. With his first cry, the sealed enclosure of earlier heaven is broken. See, they're all about that. Again, these guys are not pro creation. You gotta check out my old shit for all that, as to why that would even be the case. This is the existence of later heaven, the way of the mortal being. Because you've been broken off from, the enclosure of earlier heaven. So once you achieve this earlier heaven breath, basically, the one breath, you will live in bliss, transcending the mortal plane. No karma will affect you. So these universal laws, and karma is just cause and effect. That's all it is. It's not like, how people religify it, make it a moral thing. It's just cause and effect. But this is known as the indestructible body of gold, because that's turning lead to gold. With this one breath of earlier heaven, you regain this breath of the embryo before the umbilical was cut. And so it's kind of like recreating yourself, but, to a new being. Intuitively understand the true way. And that's intuition. That goes back to the 0 point, earlier heaven, basically. This wisdom, it's already there. So that's, again, the true breath. See, everything comes back to the true breath. I'm not going to stray far from that. I'm going to demystify this stuff because I know it seems a little airy fairy and out of reach, but it's really not. It says this body has the elixir of immortality. Have you drunk it before? See, that's the sage, man. Like, come on. It is unbelievable to people. Like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, this guy just talking like you have no clue. And once you get into this, man, you'll see how easy it is. And then it's like how Lao Tzu says, the sage looks up at the perfected ones, with virtue and humility, but looks down at the ways accustomed to the world with shame. That sounds kind of mean, but when you really get into it, it's like, damn, it's easy, but it's like you know what it is. It's just people's mentality is so mundane. It's so earthy. They're so earthy. Even now, man, you got men. It's like the Bible says, put away childish things. It's like you got men. It's like pledging allegiance to football teams, and this is sad. This is really sad, and that's acceptable. That's sad. The mysterious gate, the singular cavity, and all the treasures described are in the body and not anywhere else. Just saying, this way is within. This alchemy is within. It's within you, not just physically, but consciously, spiritually. It's within. Immortality is in your original nature, and true nature is immortal. Just driving home the point. The original nature, like I said, you can look at that as 0 point energy. It's immortal. It's a realm unto its own. And since you're rooted in that, that's actually that's they would say that's your true nature, not you, but the you is siphoning off of that true nature. So if you just to be honest with it, since it's really no you anyway, it's nothing but that true nature. You need to realize this. Abandon the false and cultivate the real, for the real is not false. Damn, that's some real. For that reason alone, see how they reason like that. That it also helps you think a certain way too, because that's a real wise. This is intelligence. See, this is real intelligence. This what we think is intelligence is hyperanalysis, but this is real intelligence. Abandon the false and cultivate the real, for the real is not false. See, it's simple, yet that's that's what's up. It says people fall into the pit of the red dust of the mortal realm because their thoughts run wild and they have forgotten the pure skies. So again, it's like damn, they call it this a pit, the pit of the mortal realm. It's a pit. It's like you caught into it. Hell, you in the mud. Shit, I mean, but all because everything was consciousness. So it's this thinking. It's this monkey mind. That's what's basically got everybody binded, supported by oxygen, which everybody, and of course, I breathe oxygen, of course, but yeah, the mortal me breathes oxygen, but the immortal doesn't desire oxygen, doesn't need oxygen. If you do not know the principles of earlier heaven, you will not be able to achieve immortality, even if you have the methods of training in later heaven. So again, they're going back talking about those yogas and some of the tantric, some of the forceful techniques of later heaven of this creation, that's not going to get you, back to earlier heaven, because you're still stuck here. You have to, at some point, you got to let go. Mortal beings do not know the depth of the origin. So, like, yeah, we see that here. I mean, no, people not even deep enough in their perception to even. I mean, come on. I mean, the human mind itself is not deep enough, really. This is why you have to go into investigate the breathing and turn everything inward, because your conscious intellect that cannot know this. So he says their nature falls into hell and their bones are forever buried. Like, yeah, they go there. So this mind can get you into trouble. If people can find their beginnings in earlier heaven, they can return to the origin of the one emptiness. So you got to retrace everything back to this origin, using the one true breath, the heavenly breath.